both of them.
Do you think that the neocons in the State Department have recognized that their gambit in Ukraine is a failure?
Most have, but I think they're still trying to do things. Well, you probably watched at least the video that was available of Zelensky's talk and his description of his peace plan. I was kind of stunned that he actually mentioned some things in that address that essentially said, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about a ceasefire and we're going to talk about peace. Of course, he put it in the way that we will be triumphant. I'm designing the victory plan for this conference. I'm going to be the person who comes out of that conference with my integrity intact and such. But I still was curious to see that he is now moving himself, apparently, towards a process that will evolve into, I have no doubt, they're talking, and they're talking seriously, because it's over for Ukraine, and he's either going to take a bullet between the eyes or he's going to do something. And I think he's made his decision. He's just having a real difficult time eating the proper amount of crow in order to make it believable.
Yesterday at the European Parliament, the president of the Council of European Ministers, they got two parliaments and two executive branches. I didn't know that until Dr. Doctorow explained it. It's a rotating presidency. It changes every 6 months. And between June and December of this year, the president is Viktor Orban. So Viktor Orban, also the president of Hungary, was addressing the European Parliament, and they really didn't like what he said. He was basically saying, let's get the heck out of Ukraine and talk peace. In the worst wars we've ever had, both sides were talking to each other, and this time nobody is. And the parliamentarians more or less cut him off by singing a song. The left-wing parliamentarians drowned him out with a song. As soon as they finished, he stood up and went right back at them without any notes. This is what he said when he went right back at them, cut 12.
The European Union has a mistaken policy when it comes to this war. If we want to win, then we need to change this losing strategy that we are currently implementing. It was a poorly planned and poorly implemented strategy. If we continue on that route, we're going to lose. If we don't want Ukraine to lose, then we need to change strategy. And I think that you should consider that. In every war, there needs to be diplomatic work, we need to have communication, direct and indirect contacts. If we don't do that, then we will go even deeper into war, and the situation will be even more desperate. More and more people will die. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. Thousands of people are dying while we're talking here now. And with this strategy, we won't find any solution in the battlefield. So I think we need to stand up for peace. We need to focus on a ceasefire and create a different strategy, because otherwise we will all lose.
Otherwise, we will all lose. What did you think, Colonel? That's a 1-minute summary of the 17-minute speech that they tried to drown out.
2 points that I think I would make forcefully as I can. First of all, he could have quoted Clausewitz. War is an extension of policy by violent means. There's no policy. All there is war. That's what he was saying. Not just no strategy, there's no policy. The two go together like love and marriage. You've got to have a policy and you got to have a strategy to implement the policy. And war becomes your instrument, but it's still an extension of policy. But if you have no policy, there's nothing going to happen except death and destruction. And that was Clausewitz's point. What he called that kind of war was absurd in German. Absurd. Now, the second point I would make is that he is talking to some people. Judge, this is the honest to God truth, that I never heard a foreign minister, a prime minister who vouchsafed an opinion in front of me from a European country who had any respect whatsoever for Brussels and the European Parliament. They despised it. And Viktor Orban is showing you why.
Why are we still in Ukraine unless the answer to that is November 5th?
That's it. That's it for us. That's bingo. Domestic politics around an election in particular becomes the arbiter of every decision, every fate, everything anybody's thinking about. It binds you, and it binds you sometimes very dangerously. Look at LBJ when he decided to beef up to 500,000 men in Vietnam and arguably caused another 35,000 deaths.
Where do you think, well, how much longer can Ukraine last? How triumphant has the Russian military been? Quiet in the West. The West doesn't cover this anymore. The West is now fixated on Israel and Netanyahu and his disputes with Biden.
Well, Putin could do a number of things militarily speaking. His military could. I'm sure he'll probably leave some of the leeway up to them. They could just coast and not take any more casualties than they have to and just keep what remains of the Ukrainian army, which isn't very much, at bay. I don't think they'll do that, though. I think they'll keep methodically moving forward. But at one point, they're going to have to probably stop unless they want to go to the point where they cause themselves more problems in terms of taking more Ukraine terrain. I don't think they want to do that. I think Putin has been very explicit about that. He just wants control over those oblasts that he's concerned with in the east, and he's willing to stop there. Now, what I heard Zelensky saying sort of had some overtones of that, and I hope I'm not hearing wrong. I hope I'm hearing that he's speaking to an audience he knows he has to speak to and say things to, including Washington. And he's also speaking to the other side, and he's hoping they understand. And when he gets to the point where he sits down, he is going to be willing to deal with this in a realistic way.
All right. So is Putin's refusal to talk to Zelensky publicly stated, and Zelensky's publicly stated refusal to talk to Putin nonsense when Zelensky's back is to the wall?
It could start with someone that Zelensky selects and Sergei Lavrov or someone else that Putin suggests. But ultimately, it will be them speaking in the background, I think. And it may stay that way for a long time. I mean, this isn't going to be easy. I suspect it'll take a year to get this worked out.
How will the American empire look when the world knows that Ukraine was a colossal failure?
Judge, that's part of the reason for not backing off. You know, I think I've said this before on your show. The number one mistake you see throughout military history, and for that matter, state history, is reinforcement of failure. Not counting your losses, backing up and adopting a new policy and a new strategy to implement it, but reinforcing the failed strategy and policy you had. And it's usually lethal to do that.
Colonel, do we have a republic or an empire?
Empire, no question about it. I mean, no question about it. 750 military bases in the world. Rome should have been so lucky, even regionally, to have, on a per capita basis, such a spread out empire. We are the only country in the world, Judge, that has AORs for the entire world, the whole world, including the Arctic and the Antarctic now. We have a 4-star that commands the world, a portion of the world, everywhere.
Excuse me 1 second. I want to play a clip from President Zelensky. Chris, cut number 8.
2 new sanctions packages were imposed today on those who have betrayed Ukraine and also on military production in Russia, those legal entities and individuals who are working for terror. And we will continue to synchronize our Ukrainian sanctions and our pressure on the enemy with everyone in the world who, like Ukrainians, wants real peace.
Isn't that hogwash? He's going to impose sanctions on Russia?
Well, he's searching desperately for tools, no matter how minuscule and infinitesimal, that he can use when he gets in these talks. He wants leverage, and he's trying to create some of that leverage. And, you know, other people have done that in the past too, and just created it by words. And sometimes it works, and most of the time it doesn't work. but he's desperately seeking for things that he can use as leverage. He doesn't have much. His position is going to be extremely weak. And the longer he holds on to fighting, such as it is, it's going to be weaker.